A little over 2 weeks ago, I made a video about a bunch of TikTokers trying to get Bobby Lee canceled over his Tijuana story. Now, everybody 2 weeks ago in the comments of that video was like, he's not going to get canceled. Nobody's going to care because this sort of thing has happened before. And 2 weeks later, it seems like he is getting canceled. So he dropped an episode of Tigerbelly addressing the Tijuana story. I wondered why he dropped this episode because, like I said, over 2 weeks ago, I made that video about the TikTokers trying to get him canceled. At the time, he just made all of his accounts private. And it seemed like the strategy was just make all your accounts private, hunker down, ignore it, and it will just go away. So I wondered why 2 weeks later he dropped this episode of Tigerbelly addressing it. Well, it turns out there's a reason why he dropped this episode. He got dropped by Amazon and Wondery. Now, if you remember, months ago, he was signed with All Things Comedy, owned by Bill Burr. Dude, why are you coming up and talking to me when you're trashing my wife? That Bill Burr. And he left them and signed with Wondery and Amazon, probably for a lot more money. It was a 3-year deal. On last week's Tigerbelly episode, everything was fine. All the logos were the same. On this episode and going forward, there are no more logos. He has been dropped by Amazon and Wondery, which now explains why he made this episode. So he's been dropped by those companies, and now in order to get a new deal with a new company, he has to address this Tijuana thing because he just got dropped by Wondery because of the Tijuana thing. So it seems like the TikTokers, in a way, did kind of cancel him because that's losing out on a lot of money. I mean, to leave Bill Burr's thing to sign with another podcasting company, there was probably huge money involved, and now that money is gone. So he did a whole episode addressing it to try and attract someone else to sign him. And, you know, when I made that video 2 weeks ago, I was like, I didn't really think too much of it, but it seems like they got to Amazon and Wondery and they were like, yo, these TikTokers, they keep talking about this Tijuana story that you talked about on O&A and various other podcasts over the years. My whole thoughts on the Tijuana story, I couldn't care less. Whether it's true or not true, there's probably some of it's true, but not all of it, and things are highly exaggerated to make it funny. You have to remember, this is a comedian going on shows, trying to tell a story and make the story funny. So he might have just thrown in the thing of she was underage or another messed up aspect of the story. But I had a feeling this could happen. I didn't know it was going to affect his pockets the way it did, though. I mean, losing out on Amazon and Wondery money, that's got to be a hit. And, and that also opens up, how does the podcast go forward? Obviously, they're doing this episode to attract a new buyer, but they were tied up in that contract for 3 years. So now that that contract is gone, does he continue to do the podcast? Because now there's nothing contractually making him do it. He's no longer dating Kalila. I guess he's just going to go on and go forward with it, though. I checked him out in that beef show, too, him and Santino. And I make videos about stuff that's happening and stuff that is going to happen. So when I made that video 2 weeks ago about Bobby Lee getting canceled over that Tijuana story, and now I see everybody talking about it now 2 weeks later, never question my judgment and the things I say in the comments, because I'm usually always right. Like when I say Brian Calling is leaving the Fighter and the Kid podcast and going to work with Crowder full time, let me assure you that is going to happen. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but 5 months from now, When he's fully moved to Texas, it's going to happen. Just like when I made a video about Dave Landau, how he's going to leave Anthony Cumia's network and go work with Steven Crowder 2 months before it happens, and everyone in the comments says that I'm crazy. Then 2 months later, Dave Landau leaves Cumia's show and joins Steven Crowder. I predict these things because they're obvious to me. And when I see a bunch of TikTokers pick up on Bobby Lee's Tijuana story and the fact of how TikTok is always in the news, how executives at these companies are like, wait a minute, TikTok, that thing that's always in the news, everyone's talking about, a bunch of those people are now talking about Bobby Lee and this Tijuana story. Is it a big deal? Not really, but to them it is. And they were willing to cut ties, so he got dropped by them. Pretty insane. And then he did a whole episode addressing it. He said also in the thing that him and the Down syndrome uncle story wasn't true. And a bunch of other stuff. But you have to remember, these are comedians. A lot of it's fabrication, some of it true. A lot of it based in truth with fabrication. You have to remember, at the end of the day, these guys are trying to be funny. And especially back in the day, trying to be funny and shocking. So, but let me know your thoughts in the comments.